And welcome back to the madness that is Feral Publications YouTube channel. It's me, Rich, and today I want to talk about fascism and publishing. There's a whole bunch of literature revolving around, when the Bolsheviks kind of took over, Russia, and the way they started to censor a lot of what could or could not be published and the way it was going to be published. And beyond that, you also have a lot of the information revolving around Germany during a similar era, as well as Italy during a similar era, as well as Franco in Spain during a similar kind of era in their in the history, right? And there's so much key points and overlap that you would have to be naive not to assume that that's kind of some of the stuff that we're going to start seeing. And that topic has been one of the leading forces that has had me more motivated than I normally am, right? There's a reason why I felt okay, let me put my head back into this game and really build something worth building, because I can see that we're going to need alternative perspectives and we're going to need alternative medias. And even more than that, we're going to need underground media to really spread information truthfully, right? Or first-hand accounts of things that people otherwise it would not be covered. And even more so than Feral Publication being that focal point for the publishing or underground publishing, it's more this idea that if I could build the blueprint that other people can replicate, then I've done what I can, you know what I mean? And after that, people can really pick up that mantle and really spread out the information that they see fit to spread out, right? That's the thing about independent publishing and zines and all this stuff that I'm really into, is this idea that I'm not here to tell you what to say. I'm not here to tell you how you should say it, right? And there's no gatekeepers in the zine community, right? But the idea is that whatever you feel you need to say, there's a way for you to distribute that out to people. And that's what I've been most endeared about with the zine community. And I think that currently with what's going on, zines are going to be much more powerful and important for a lot of communities, right? So you know what? I need some coffee. We're really going to get into this. Let me get a cup of coffee. Hold up. All right. And there's three main points that kept overlapping in all the reading I was doing, right? And I wrote down some notes, but let's pull it up, right? And I'll definitely show some of the sources that I went through, but such as Mussolini and the Press, History of Censorship in Italy, In the Face of Fascism, Extreme Nationalism, Authoritarianism, and Totalitarianism. Getting ready for the Second World War, Fascist Propaganda and Ideology. You got the Press and the Third Reich, and these are on all kinds of different websites that you can peep out. If you trust a source more than another, give it a chance. But ultimately, in the end, most of it, when you compile it together and you try to find overlapping themes and concepts, for the most part, I think that this is probably the most well put version of it, right? Fascist regimes profoundly impact publishing companies by exerting strict control over information and using the industry as a tool for propaganda and ideological indoctrination. And in a nutshell, I think that's pretty much what it is, right? Publishing media becomes a tool, an apparatus of the state. And once it becomes that, ultimately, right, going back to that thing of what they call degenerate art in Germany, certain things start to get ostracized, certain things won't sell, certain things cannot be promoted, certain things, I'm in the middle of something, certain things just cannot be allowed to really grow and spread, right? And I'm already seeing that in a lot of ways with some of the things that I've done, some of the things that I've tried to pay ads on, things that before I had no problem paying for ads, right? As an anarchist, I don't like either or, right? Straight up. But in the end, it hasn't been until recently that I've noticed that anytime I put anything that's anti-state, is the way I like to refer to it as, anytime I put anything that's against the state, now I cannot pay for ads, it does not get the same amount of views, watch time, or anything that normally it would. And for the most part, I can see that there's a hindrance to it now. And this goes in two ways, right? Like if you go to the reading, you'll see that some of it, what ends up happening to the publishing companies, is that people buy into fascism. That's how we end up with fascism, right? People bought into it, and now we're living through it, right? And what ends up happening is that people flag your shit, right? So like I've had this on multiple occasions, right? Jesus the Asshole is probably the more famous of it, where people just didn't understand what it was, and instead of giving it a chance, they would just flag it as hate speech. But like beyond that, like currently things get flagged. Things that, like, I did a drawing of Elon Musk and BDMS, and that got flagged, right? I did a drawing of Trump that way, that got flagged. And I don't think it's getting flagged by TikTok, by Instagram, right? But rather TikTok and Instagram users who just happened to come across it because the algorithm was like, well, you might like this. And they're like, flag, right? And that's definitely one of the pillars that a lot of that reading kind of shows you, is that a lot of the censorship that happens during this era is going to be from just your peers, from other people that just kind of come in contact with that media, and they're going to jump on you, and they're going to, you know, point their fingers at you, and they're going to tell the authorities, and they're going to, right? So that's the first pillar, right? But the second pillar is that the media that does get allowed to get promoted, and the media that does get the dollar, and the media that is allowed to kind of like grow and flourish, right, is things that serve the state, right? So things that are going to indoctrinate the youth into what they want them to think, right? Media that basically reinforces what the government is saying. And the reason why is because for fascism to work and exist, right, there needs to be kind of like the buy-in, right? Like there needs to be this culture of like, this is okay, this is normal, like just continue on with your day, right? And that can only exist in a world that's real bland and real dark and real bleak, and like where discussions are not allowed, right? And that's why, like, more now than ever, I feel the need to be disruptive, to be loud, to be aggressively different, because the reality is that like we need to allow people to know that there's a whole wide spectrum of like people, beliefs, thoughts, ideologies, and the idea isn't that one necessarily is better than the other, but that when we pull all of that together, we're gonna come up with something really great, right? Something really fantastic and fascinating, and that will really push the human experience forward. But that's only if you pull all that stuff together. And the reality is, like, if you only think in one term, you're limiting the possibilities to your ideas, your creation, right? The solutions to problems, you know? And I think that that's kind of what's really dangerous about fascism, is that, you know, they talk about like if all like the books prior to like colonialism had survived, like how much more advanced would humanity be? Like how much more would we know? But, you know, colonialism occurred, and so much of the information that these other groups of humans had collected was destroyed. So like those are the three key, like, you know, pillars that occurs to publishing during fascism, right? Like I said, there's the censorship and suppression, and that's either by the state, by corporate entities that don't want to ruffle the feathers of the state, or by the people that have already bought into it, right? Like I said, if that thing is in place, it's because there's a mass group of people that are in support and following that. After that, you have what role does publishing play, right? Or media play overall, and that's indoctrination, right? That's propaganda, right? That's getting them to believe and to buy into whatever the fuck. And the third one, again, is like the economic impact. They make it damn near impossible to break even, let alone be profitable. And so that's kind of where, like I said, that's my kind of goal and mission in the moment, is like, how do I build the blueprint so that underground media can continue to flourish and grow? And even more than that, like, how do I build an underground media distribution system so that we can continuously, you know, spread our thoughts, ideas, and just amplify different perspectives? And that's what I'm up to. But that's all I got for you guys today, man. Thank you so much for watching. As always, there will be a link in the show notes to take you to feralpublication.com, where you guys can get the zines, buttons, stickers, and t-shirts I make. Beyond that, please like, share, subscribe, and guess what? I do this every day, so I'll see you guys tomorrow. Lights.